Imagine standing in an open, frozen field 10,000 years ago. The air is colder, the wind is louder, and in the distance, something massive is moving. Not a dinosaur, not a myth, a real animal that humans actually saw with their own eyes. We tend to think of the modern world as peak size. Polar bears feel enormous, elephants feel unstoppable. But just a short time ago in Earth's timeline, many animals were even larger, heavier, and more powerful than what we see today. 10,000 years is not ancient history, it is a blink. That means our ancestors shared the planet with creatures that would completely change how we picture wildlife. Some towered over today's biggest predators. Some were built thicker, stronger, more extreme. And some looked familiar, but on another level entirely. This wasn't the age of dinosaurs. It was the end of the Ice Age. And the animals walking across that frozen landscape were the giants of a world that doesn't exist anymore. And the last one on this list might have been the tallest land predator mammal North America ever had. About 10,000 years ago, one of the most recognizable Ice Age giants was the woolly mammoth. At first glance, it looked like a modern elephant covered in fur, but the differences went far beyond a shaggy coat. Woolly mammoths could stand over 11 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh as much as 6 to 8 tons. That already puts them in the same weight class as the largest African elephants today. But many mammoths had longer, more dramatically curved tusks, sometimes stretching over 13 feet in length. These tusks weren't just for display. They were used to sweep away snow to reach buried grasses and shrubs during brutal Ice Age winters. Their bodies were built for extreme cold. Thick layers of fat insulated them from freezing temperatures. Their long outer hair trapped heat, while a dense underlayer acted almost like natural thermal gear. Even their ears were smaller than modern elephants, reducing heat loss in the Arctic winds. And here's what makes this even more fascinating. Mammoths were still around far more recently than most people think. Some populations survived until about 4,000 years ago on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean. That means mammoths were still alive when ancient civilizations were already building monuments. But despite their size and resilience, they eventually disappeared. Scientists point to a mix of rapid climate changes at the end of the Ice Age and increasing human hunting pressure. As grasslands shifted and habitats fragmented, these giants had fewer places to roam. When you picture an elephant today, it feels massive, but for early humans, that wasn't the biggest thing on the landscape. The woolly mammoth was. Another giant that roamed the Ice Age world was the Smilodon. Many people imagine it as just a lion with long teeth, but that comparison doesn't fully capture how different it really was. Smilodon wasn't necessarily longer than today's big cats, but it was far more heavily built. Some individuals weighed over 600 pounds, making them bulkier than most modern African lions. Their bodies were compact, with especially powerful forelimbs and a deep, muscular chest. Instead of relying purely on speed, they were built for strength and control.
And then there were the teeth. Smilodon's upper canines could grow up to 7 inches long. These curved sabers were not designed for crushing bone like a hyena or jaguar. Instead, scientists believe they were used for carefully placed bites, likely targeting soft tissue after overpowering prey with their powerful forelimbs. Fossil evidence from places like the La Brea tar pits shows broken bones that healed, suggesting these cats may have lived in social groups, possibly helping injured members survive. Their prey included large Ice Age herbivores such as bison, camels, and even young mammoths. That means Smilodon wasn't just facing deer-sized animals. It lived in a world filled with megafauna, and it evolved accordingly. Despite their strength and intimidating appearance, Smilodon disappeared around 10,000 years ago. As the climate warmed and many large herbivores declined or vanished, these specialized predators lost the massive prey they depended on. When you look at a modern lion or tiger today, they feel powerful. But during the Ice Age, there was a cat built thicker, armed with blade-like teeth, living in a world where everything was bigger. Roaming across Ice Age North America alongside mammoths and saber-toothed cats was the powerful dire wolf. Thanks to movies and TV, many people picture them as oversized versions of modern gray wolves. But recent research shows they were something more distinct. Dire wolves were larger and heavier than most living wolves, with broader heads and stronger jaws. They weren't built for marathon-style endurance like modern wolves that can chase prey for long distances. Instead, they had a stockier, more muscular frame designed for handling large animals in close quarters. Their teeth were thicker and more robust, suggesting they regularly tackled massive Ice Age herbivores. Fossils from the La Brea tar pits in California have revealed thousands of dire wolf remains, almost more than any other large predator found there. This tells scientists two things. First, they were incredibly common. Second, they likely lived and hunted in social groups similar to modern wolves, allowing them to bring down prey much larger than a single wolf could manage alone. However, genetic studies published in recent years showed something surprising. Dire wolves weren't just big gray wolves. They belonged to a separate evolutionary lineage that split from other canids millions of years earlier. That means they weren't closely related to modern wolves at all. As the Ice Age ended, many of the large herbivores they depended on began to disappear. Without giant prey like ancient bison and horses, dire wolves faced shrinking food sources. Combined with environmental change and competition, their numbers declined until they vanished around 10,000 years ago. Today's wolves are impressive hunters, but during the Ice Age, there was a heavier, stronger predator running in packs across a much larger world. Towering over the Ice Age landscape was one of the most intimidating mammals North America has ever known, the short-faced bear. At first glance, it may have looked like a modern bear, but its proportions were dramatically different.
When standing on all fours, the short-faced bear was already enormous, comparable in size to today's largest grizzlies. But when it rose onto its hind legs, it could reach an estimated 11 to 12 feet tall. That is taller than a basketball hoop. Its limbs were longer and more slender than those of modern bears, giving it a more upright posture and a unique silhouette that would have stood out immediately against the Ice Age horizon. Unlike modern brown bears, which are built for strength and digging, the short-faced bear's longer legs suggest it was adapted for covering vast distances efficiently. Some scientists believe it may have been a powerful scavenger, capable of traveling across open terrain to locate carcasses and intimidating other predators away from their meals simply through sheer size. Its massive frame alone could have been enough to discourage even saber-toothed cats or large wolf packs. That doesn't mean it wasn't capable of hunting. With its height, reach, and strength, it certainly had the tools to compete in a landscape filled with megafauna. But its real advantage may have been presence. In a world already dominated by giant animals, it stood above them. As the Ice Age ended and large prey species declined, the ecosystems that supported such enormous predators began to collapse. Around 10,000 years ago, the short-faced bear disappeared. Today's grizzlies feel huge, but once North America had a bear that could literally look down on them. Slow, quiet, and almost unbelievable in size, the giant ground sloth was one of the strangest giants of the Ice Age. If you picture a tree sloth hanging upside down in a rainforest, now imagine that animal scaled up to the size of an elephant. Megatherium could weigh up to 4 tons. That is heavier than most modern cars. When moving on all fours, it already appeared massive, with a thick body supported by sturdy limbs. But it could also rear up onto its hind legs, using its powerful tail as support to reach vegetation high above the ground. In that posture, it would have stood several meters tall, towering over most animals in its environment. Despite its size, this wasn't a predator. It was a herbivore, feeding on leaves, shrubs, and branches. Its long, curved claws helped pull down vegetation and possibly defend itself when necessary. Those claws alone would have made any potential threat think twice. Even large Ice Age predators likely approached with caution. What makes Megatherium especially fascinating is that early humans in South America likely encountered them. Cave sites and fossil evidence suggest that humans and giant ground sloths overlapped in time. That means our ancestors may have stood face to face with an animal that looked like a walking relic from another world. As climates shifted at the end of the Ice Age and human populations expanded, these enormous sloths gradually vanished. Their slow reproduction and massive size may have made them especially vulnerable to environmental change. Today, sloths are small and quiet, clinging to tree branches, but 10,000 years ago, one of their relatives walked the earth as a true giant.
10,000 years ago is not deep prehistoric time. It is recent enough that humans were already building tools, forming communities, and spreading across continents. That means people did not just imagine these giants, they lived alongside them.
The world they walked through was filled with animals that were larger, heavier, and more extreme than many of the species we see today. Bears that towered overhead, cats built thicker and stronger, mammals that reached the size of small houses. The scale of nature itself felt different. When the Ice Age ended, climates shifted, ecosystems transformed, and many of these massive species disappeared. In their place, new balances formed. Modern elephants, wolves, and bears are still impressive, but they exist in a world shaped by the loss of those giants. It is easy to think of today's predators as the ultimate versions of power and size, but history shows us something surprising. Nature has already tested larger designs before, and for a brief moment in time, humans shared the planet with a world that was built on a much bigger scale. And that world vanished faster than we often realized.